Welcome to Whisperer of Madness. If you're enjoying the story, consider liking the video and subscribing. It really helps grow the channel and this community. Extraction and elimination *Chie. The very moment Arwen was taken away, a piercing sound exploded in the icy castle, causing the air to quiver and the ground to tremble. Large numbers of guards knelt on the ground, shuddering as they begged the Arctic Queen to quell her anger. However, their prayers were to no avail. A dazzling blue light swept out, wrapping up the entire castle within. The icy beings in the castle, be they guards, maids, servants, or prisoners, all turned into ice sculptures. Streams of blue light gathered from their bodies, tunneling into the ground like earthworms. Whoosh! When all the blue luster disappeared from the ice sculptures, numerous cracks appeared on them as they crumbled apart to form a snow-white powder. The castle sank into a deathly silence. Meanwhile, in another place deep underground, the steel-like ice opened up automatically, showing a structure similar to a basement. An eternal light spell illuminated the entire area. Many beakers and tools were placed on a translucent tabletop, seemingly in a mess yet possessing some kind of order. Some of the beakers were full of colorful, even smelly fluids. Leyland stood at the simplified laboratory table, watching the stone statue that was once Arwen at the center of the spell formation, a teasing look on his face. This 5-star morning star, someone who was considered the leader of the world of ice, had now been turned into a mere stone statue. Even his soul had been frozen completely, leaving behind a shell that still had life force within. Based on previous experience, he would get the best results when the breath of the icy jade scorpion was used together with icy radiation. And in order to preserve the freshness of the material, Arwen was forced to suffer, becoming Leyland's captive. He would definitely not meet a good end. When I probed the area during my entry to this place, there was still a more mysterious aura than Arwen's in the icy castle. Was that the Arctic Queen? Leyland frowned, and threads of blood-red light were emitted by a spell formation with but a thought. They began to spread to the inner parts of the stone sculpture. Hand over your memories, little lamb that has lost its way. Leyland's eyes were serene as he chanted some kind of ancient incantation with a strange pitch. Runes began to disappear into the spell formation. Ooh-oh, a woman's wail sounded out, and 3 long-haired female figures appeared within the spell formation. These 3 female youths wore blood-red dresses, not looking a day over 30 years of age. They seemed very pretty, but their expressions were varied. One was beaming, the crescent of her eyes so pronounced that they were practically closed. The other showed distress, while the one in the middle was emotionless, like a block of ice. Go! Leyland pointed towards the statue. The 3 female figures floated and circled the stone statue, occasionally extending translucent hands into the stone statue's brain. Afterwards, 3 red figures entered Arwen's mind, and the stone statue shook continuously. The spell formation had no choice but to strengthen the seal. Arg! In that moment, the ghastly wailing increased tenfold in volume, a layer of demonic blood emanating from Arwen's body. Reached critical period. Target is about to break down. The AI chip produced a timely reminder. Come back, my darlings. Leyland's eyes were filled with a strange light as he made a very attractive sound. As if some invisible force field had appeared, the 3 figures were pulled out from within the stone statue. The 3 figures' varying expressions had been enhanced further. They shrank to 1/10 of their original size, gathering on top of Leyland's palm. Boiling hot, complicated emotions flooded Leyland's mind. Chaotic emotions as well as memory fragments. AI chip, Leyland immediately commanded. Rumble. The surge of complicated emotions seemed to have hit a tall mountain. Though Morningstar Warlocks had intense emotions, they were merely complicated hormone secretions to be recorded down for the unfeeling AI chip. Once the emotions were intercepted, the AI chip began to arrange the scattered and fragmented memories. One after another, scattered images were formed in front of Leyland's eyes. They were very fragmented, and even with the AI chip's reorganization, Leyland could not find any information that was significant. After the extensive data was transmitted, the 3 spirits in Leyland's hands exploded, dissipating like a fog. Leyland's expression did not change as he sighed. Extracting the memories of a morning star is truly troublesome. The soul force of a morning star Magus was extremely powerful, and memories protected by it were akin to the most stable fort. Leyland could destroy it with ease, but he would find it difficult to find the content within, even with the support of the AI chip. However, with its strengthened abilities and the database on the soul, the AI chip was able to give Leyland a nice surprise. An image that was not quite as incomplete was projected before Leyland. This was a map of the world of ice, with a red dot of light at the center. It was extremely dazzling. As he zoomed in, the red light was magnified, revealing a castle built entirely of ice. Multicolor light formed a splendid view of it. Such dense icy radiation! Leyland sucked in a cold breath. He could now confirm that the bloodline of the female bronze giant was within the palace. But where's the Arctic Queen? Leyland asked with doubt as he skimmed through the other information found by the AI chip. However, there were no records of this queen, which was rather interesting. Even if the Arctic Queen rarely showed herself, Arwen, who was her #1 subordinate, should have had opportunities to meet her. Memory seals. Leyland touched his chin. Some magi could choose to store or seal their important memories, and that was an even easier task for Morning Star magi. It looks like this mysterious Arctic Queen has a lot of secrets. Leyland shook his head and commanded, AI chip, begin the second phase. Obtain the icy breath and purify the bloodline. Arwen's memories were merely an appetizer. The full course that Leyland was waiting on was the unique icy breath that belonged to the icy jade scorpion. It was very effective for his emotional instability. On top of that, Leyland had the premonition that for giant Chemian serpents, rank 4 should not be the limit. However, for some reason, be it because of genes restrictions or the influences from the purgatory world, giant Chemian serpents had lost the ability to evolve further. If he could completely treat his emotional imbalance, his grasp of the Chemian bloodline would reach unprecedented levels. Only after reaching this state would he have the confidence to attempt at tackling the giant Chemian serpent bloodline issue. With Leyland's command, the AI chip began its precise task. Arwen's statistics in all aspects were recorded, and it formulated the most accurate plan of operation, presenting it before Leyland. Record all the information in its entirety. Leyland took out a silver surgical knife which complicated patterns on it, eyes emanating a heated radiance. Dissecting an ancient bloodline creature completely, especially one at the Morning Star realm, is not an easy opportunity to come by. Mission established. Beginning recording. The AI chip intoned loyally. Begin! Leyland was now wearing a snow-white gown, the plastic gloves on his hands having gone through rigorous sterilization. With the power of magic, while it looked primal, the level of this laboratory was rather similar with the one in Leyland's previous world, and in certain ways even surpassed it. Thud! A layer of rocky skin fell, revealing the skin and flesh on Arwen's arm. Under Leyland's surgical knife, the two were easily separated to reveal translucent blood vessels. Swish! A black ray of light streaked through the horizon, as glorious as a shooting star. Leyland's eyes were like stars, a hint of glee in his expression. I feel better than I've ever felt before. Feeling the coldness in his mind, and no longer having any jittery emotions, Leyland was in a great mood. The icy breath from the Morning Star ranked Arwen was the best medicine for Leyland's emotional instability. Added to the soul treatment with help from the AI chip, the negative effects that came together with fusing with the giant Chemian serpent's soul had been completely eliminated. In other words, the chaotic world that had come from the snake dowager migrating the entire species to the purgatory world was now forever gone from his body. Beep. Host has removed influence from chaotic world will. Chem-in bloodline being purified. The AI chip called to his attention. When he looked with his soul force, the purplish-red bloodline in his body now ran deeper, and each time his heart pulsed, a purifying force was pumped to all parts of his body. The various parts of his body reacted strangely to this purifying force, resulting in a complete transformation from head to toe. Morning Star Soul Force is supposed to nourish a Magus body, transforming it qualitatively in order to form the perfect Morning Star body. That is supposed to be equivalent to the standard of a normal heavenly astral. Not only does my current body already surpass this so-called standard, it even has a chance of evolving further. Leyland felt that after his bloodline's transformation was complete, he would be able to peak at an even more terrifying realm. The natural rank of their bloodline was what prevented Chem-Yin warlocks from ever advancing to rank 5. However, there was currently a high possibility that he would be able to break past that. Arctic Queen, a black shooting star, streaked across the horizon, its magnificence amplified under the translucent, icy sky. Leyland was sending out a thread of soul force every once in a while, scanning the energies of the surrounding beings. It seems like Arwen's fall caused some sort of chain reaction. As far as he could see, the various regions in this world of ice had been disturbed at least on some level. Many of the intellectual icy beings, such as the Arctic tribe, and even the ice leopards and the frost dragons, were beginning to rebel against the Arctic Queen's rule. It's understandable, though. The other races never could stand being under her rule anyway. Since she's fallen, a frenzied rebellion is only to be expected, Leyland thought as he touched his pouch. Extracting the icy breath to treat his emotional stability was not the only thing he'd done. He hadn't wasted any part of the body, not even his bloodline. It was all currently stored in his pouch. There were still many survivors who had seen Leyland defeat Arwen, and news had spread quickly. Without the suppression of a morning star, the rebellion of these various races was not surprising. But the Arctic Queen has been in power for so many years. It doesn't make sense for everything to fall apart so bad so quickly. Leyland's eyes twinkled with a distinct light. Even with Arwen's death, the Arctic Queen's guards should not have been defeated so quickly. It was like the headquarters had been destroyed with no clear commands given. At this point, Leyland suddenly had a thought. Could there be something wrong at the Arctic Queen's palace? That was all he managed to think of. The shooting star that was Leyland whizzed faster into the horizon, only leaving behind afterimages in the sky. Even rank 3 creatures could only crouch on the ground, unable to move after seeing Leyland hurtling past. They were terrified by his speed and prowess. The Castle of Ice was located at the heart of this world, and when Leyland came here, he found that the vicinity of the place had gone up in smoke. The many suppressed races had formed an alliance, gathering troops at the center of the icy plains. The few remaining guards were led by Arctic knights as they used the terrain of the Great Valley at their stronghold to fight back, but it was a losing battle. It looked like this alliance would be able to enter the castle in no time at all. Keek! With Arwen's death, the entire castle's defense is rendered useless. Watching the bustling camp of the allied forces, a smirk rose about Leyland's lips. When they breach the walls of the palace and instead of victory, see the Arctic Queen who's even more terrifying than Arwen, what kind of expression will they have? Leyland's eyes did not stop on the battlefield, and instead switched to the castle. There were a few loyal guards and the like who wanted to stop him, but they were no match for him at all. They were not even able to hold him back for a few seconds. What Leyland found strange was that the closer he got to the castle, the weaker the resistance grew. The moment he arrived on top of the place, the guards only dared to look at him from afar, not advancing. It was as if there was some kind of terrifying danger within the castle. This is the place. There's no life force in here at all, only some kind of absorptive force. Leyland hovered above the Castle of Ice and observed its magnificence, though his eyes only held solemnness. The icy radiation had peaked here, and the concentration was hundreds, even thousands of times greater than in the outer world. It was constantly changing and growing, distorting continuously. Those below Morning Star probably won't be able to survive here. The radiation was far too powerful, to the point that no ordinary beings could handle it. It had become a life-threatening poison. However, what astonished Leyland was not the concentration of the radiation, but the mysterious absorptive force coming from the ground. The area under this Castle of Ice was like a terrifying black hole to his senses, continuously absorbing the life force of everything on the ground. On top of that, it was expanding without end. A thick layer of white, icy powder had formed on the ground, left behind by some unlucky fighters. Blue light shot out from Leyland's eyes, and he cried out involuntarily. No. It's not their life force that's being absorbed. It's the frost energy and the icy nature of their bloodlines. Suddenly, as if having sensed Leyland's arrival, the entire surface of the castle began to quiver. That vague scent and aura Leyland had sensed began to awaken, its strength increasing. Ah! The mumble of a female voice resounded above the icy castle. Large amounts of winds and snow gathered, forming the statue of a female giant. The woman had a crown on her head, a dignified pair of freezing eyes under slender eyelashes. She extended her arms towards the distant battle. Rumble, terrifying blue pillars of light emerged from the ground and seemed to break through into the heavens, releasing endless ripples of energy. The eyes of those who had been embroiled in the bloody battle were suddenly filled with confusion and regret. "All hail the Queen! All hail the Queen! All hail the Queen!" A guard was the first to toss away his lance and shield, running towards the danger zone that he'd avoided as if it was a den of scorpions and snakes, looking extremely enthusiastic. His legs were frozen as a blue light emerged from them and traveled underground. They then cracked off. The guard did not notice at all. Even when his 2 legs were torn off, he still tried to get to the castle on his hands, the injury clotted with a layer of frost. The frost continued to expand, covering the entirety of the guard. Traces of blue light were absorbed by the ground, causing his life force to weaken continuously. He was zealous unto death, as if the Arctic Queen was his goddess to whom he was willing to sacrifice his everything. This is even more terrifying than an illusion. Even his soul isn't his own anymore. Leyland sighed from high in the sky, watching everything apathetically. It was not just the guards. Even the opposing allied forces threw their weapons away, showing the same fanaticism after one glance at the female giant. They rushed towards the castle as well. Countless icy statues formed and then broke down, forming a thick layer of white powder on the ground. Yet, even that did not prevent them from surging forth, wave upon wave. Blue light was emitted from Leyland's eyes, and great amounts of information were stored in his database. With the AI chip's collection of statistical data, everything was presented before him. The attraction of the bloodline, the icy radiation too had affected their behavior. Leyland touched his chin. This was not a temporary control from illusory spells, but a terrifying effect that was formed over a long period of time. That was why the effects were so good, such that even rank 3 beings could not escape. Looks like this is a blood sacrifice, Leyland suddenly guessed. Perhaps the Arctic Queen had herded the various races in this world like livestock. Every once in a while, they would be harvested after reaching maturity. If that's so, the Arctic Queen is probably... A flash of determination appeared in Leyland's eyes, morning star radiation engulfing the area. The void itself seemed to tremble, and the world instantly turned black and white. The scope of the radiation continuously widened, and the few that had yet to enter the range of the castle suddenly showed looks of pain and suffering as they collapsed to the ground, their faces distorting. Even their internal organs swelled and ruptured. Leyland had already reached the peak of Morning Star. He usually kept his radiation sealed, which was how he brought no harm to his surroundings wherever he went. Now, his suddenly unleashing it was difficult for the rank 3 beings to bear. The sufferance was enough for these icy beings to regain their senses. They raised their heads, eyes full of terror as they stared hard at the floating Leyland and the female giant. Making some strange sounds, they escaped without turning back. Even so, they'd come into contact with Leyland's powerful radiation. There were a few rank 2s and 3s at the side who could still use their own strength to rid themselves of the contamination, but those weaker than that would probably die if they were contaminated. It was only a matter of time. Before their lives were completely burnt through, they would still have to deal with bearing the pain from the contamination. The disturbance seemed to spread further and further as more of these tribals regained their sanity. No matter what camp they were in, these life-and-death enemies all escaped pitifully, only wanting to get as far away as possible. The female giant in the air suddenly turned back, her eyes focusing on Leyland. Coldness was laid bare in them, but Leyland met her gaze head-on. He hadn't interfered at first because he needed to collect information and calculate the way the energy was used. Yet, once all was said and done, he wouldn't be so stupid as to let his opponent grow in power. The giant made of ice snarled, and a large icy tornado was formed at her fist, hurtling towards Leyland. A gigantic giant Chemian serpent appeared at Leyland's back. Compared to before, it was now even larger, and its eyes glowed with greater intelligence as it hissed at the giant. Boom! Formless sound waves clashed with the tornado, and snow filled the sky. Illusion and manipulation. A mere clone wants to attack me, Leyland sneered, the phantom giant Chemian serpent behind him rapidly shrinking. Its body was now more substantial, and its scales reflected a dazzling luster. The giant Chemian serpent snarled, its tremendous tail whipping at the female giant like a mace. Boom! The female giant's body blew up, and snowflakes fluttered in the sky. The aftershocks were transmitted to the castle below, and large cracks began to appear on the walls. Whoosh! As the wind and snow calmed, the entire area turned strangely silent. The white powder formed from the life energy and consumption of frost energy of the many icy races covered the ground. There were also the remains of armor and weapons, which made the area seem even more desolate. Leyland heaved a long sigh, producing a test tube from his spatial pouch that was filled with a purple liquid. The seal at the mouth of the test tube opened automatically, and a liquid dripped down to the ground, spreading quickly. Large amounts of white powder were dissolved by the potion, creating a gigantic pool of water. There were countless bubbles constantly being produced on the surface, and they instantly turned the surroundings of the castle into a purple swamp. The purple swamp continued to expand, also showing signs of going deeper. I've made calculations with the AI chip and developed this potion from Arwen's blood and flesh using his memories. Let's hope this is effective. By this point, Leyland had guessed the origin of this Arctic queen. Hence, he was currently feeling very serious, hoping that his conjecture was wrong. However, what he had just seen had validated his suspicion. Large amounts of purple bubbles were constantly produced, and the original castle of ice was beginning to be eaten into, the main body of the building slowly sinking down. Buzz, a pure, powerful spiritual force extended and began to fuse with the surroundings. Almost instantly, Leyland found himself in another wondrous environment. The sky was no longer filled with ice, it wasn't the crust of the earth. The moon sparkled in a starry sky, and below was a white continent that spread a vast ocean, as far as the eye could see. Ice mountain wyverns, chilly giants, and other creatures were roaring out, and most had surpassed the limits of Morning Star. This is the real icy world, Leyland muttered to himself. He, who possessed some of the memories of the ancient scorpion man, was naturally somewhat familiar with this place. Yes, the real icy world, my homeland. Foreign Magus, can you fulfill my wish of returning to my homeland? The Arctic Queen spoke with a gentle tone as she appeared by his side. Looking somewhat similar to the giant from before, she had on a crown and platinum imperial robes. Arctic Queen! Leyland's pupils shrank as he scanned the surroundings. Not a bad illusion. The most beautiful of illusions is still not reality. Even the fake world of ice in reality does not measure up to a smidgen of the splendor of the real icy world. The Arctic Queen sighed, her tone so sorrowful Leyland couldn't bear it. He wanted to speak up, helping her solve the issue. As long as you're willing to help me, you shall be the sole emperor of the entire icy world. As if she had seen Leyland wavering, the Arctic Queen added a bargaining chip. Pretty good conditions. It's a pity that I don't see any sincerity in them at all. How can someone who uses illusory magic on potential allies be trusted to abide by their promises? Leyland shook his head, his words causing the expression on the Arctic Queen's face to change. Blood-red flames came into being on Leyland's hands. They crackled as they were shot to the Arctic Queen's feet without hesitation, starting to burn her. You'll regret this. The Arctic Queen, who was now covered in flames, showed a wavering energy. Yet, she was like an expressionless paper doll as she spoke. If I agree to your conditions, I might regret it even more. Leyland was still slightly fearful at this time. He believed that he had a very powerful resistance to illusory magic, and yet he had easily been pulled into the illusion that his opponent had created, and almost lost his senses. If not for the AI chip's timely warning, as well as the many secret techniques of spirit warlocks he'd learnt from Paul, he might very well have died here. After all, who would have thought that the ruler of the icy world was proficient in illusory psychological hints? You'll regret this. You'll regret this. An icy female voice resounded in the illusion, causing his hair to stand. Paper dolls that resembled the Arctic Queen sprang up one after another, the icy world collapsing with a rumble. Whether it was the stars in the sky, the continent, or the creatures upon it, everything turned into an Arctic Queen, giving Leyland a terrifying glare. Beep. Host's brain is suffering from an unknown influence. Determined to be illusory magic, the AI chip's voice sounded. That's obvious, damn it, but my connection to the real world hasn't been severed. If I die here, my main body outside will probably die as well. Morning Star energy rippled as traces of soul force lingered around the surface of Leyland's body, giving him a few layers of protection. Such a high-level illusion could render a Magus, spiritual force useless. However, it could not restrict a Morning Star's soul force, which still had a good effect. However, this was the opponent's home ground. If he used up all of his soul force, he would be in trouble. AI chip, scan the structure of the illusion and search for the point of three-dimensional construct and WERS space. Leyland silently sent down the order. The AI chip did not have a good method of dealing with such a situation before, but now with the database on the soul, its ability at analysis had improved by leaps and bounds. You can't escape! Like the many galaxies in the universe, countless three-dimensional Arctic queens were formed. These clones that looked like inverted images of the original held weapons in their hands, going on the offensive against him. Ting! Soul force condensed to form a blood-red cross blade in Leyland's hands. Leyland quickly took a step forward, the cross blade blocking large numbers of icy blades that produced dazzling rays of light. Cross slash! A cross-shaped light flashed, and tens of paper dolls turned into fragments that filled the skies. It's of no use. This is my spiritual world. No number of deaths will cause any exhaustion to me. How long do you think your soul force can last you? The doll accompanying this icy voice was torn to shreds, but it then reformed into the Arctic Queen once more. Stop resisting when it doesn't even matter. Together we can, Schlick. Before the Arctic Queen could finish her words, her head was chopped off. The flat head that was like a piece of paper fell to the ground and continued to chatter on. Your only choice is to serve me. Hand over your soul source and become my servant. This way I might even let you off. Rumble. Red flames flashed and burnt the paper into ashes. There was a cold smirk on Leyland's face. I'd be a fool to listen to your commands. Kill him! As if the Arctic Queen had been enraged, large numbers of two-dimensional paper clones pounced on him. Cross slash! Leyland's expression was cool as he launched attack after attack, sending fragmented paper flying into the skies, filling it like butterflies. They even covered Leyland's clothes, his weapon, and his hair. I told you, you can't escape. The paper on Leyland's body became as heavy as lead, a few pieces joining to form the face of the Arctic Queen. Leyland's body grew sluggish as a blade swiped at his chest. The fine chem-in scales unexpectedly could not hinder the blade at all, and a wound opened up on his chest, blood spurting out. I told you this is my mental world. Even if your defenses are extremely powerful in the external world, I am the ruler here. The paper doll standing in front of Leyland spoke slowly. Is that so? Leyland's face was pale, his body in the external world evidently receiving a real injury. If it's true, wouldn't you have killed me long ago? Why would you still be here spouting so much nonsense? Nonsense. The Arctic Queen's brows lifted and raised her arms. Leyland had no idea which part of his speech had irritated her. The number of illusory figures increased greatly, and in practically an instant the area was completely filled with paper dolls of various colors. Since you wish to die, let me fulfill your wish. Countless Arctic queens pounced forth. At this moment, however, a slight smile appeared about Leyland's lips. Found it! He suddenly moved forward, soul force undulating at his body and gathering on the crossblade, resulting in rays of flaming light that seemed endless. Cross slash! The gleaming crossblade sliced at a point in the sky. Crack, crack! It was like a mirror being shattered, and numerous shivering, spotted lights that resembled tadpoles appeared behind it. No, impossible. How did you find out? The Arctic Queen's voice became high-pitched and piercing. Ha ha! Leyland laughed maniacally, ignoring the fury of the Arctic Queen behind him, and rushed headfirst into the sea of tadpoles. AI chip, begin destruction based on the previous plan. Countless black threads appeared in Leyland's hands and quickly dispersed. Even more mirrors shattered. Bang! A slight tremor was produced by Leyland's body, and his eyes instantly focused. He glanced at the icy castle and purple swamp as well as the cut on his chest and sighed. I'm finally out! Kai Kai. At this moment, a furious, high-pitched sound was emitted from under the castle. The opponent's illusory spells are too powerful. I need to leave for now. Just now, Leyland had lucked out. Depending on the AI chip's ability to find the gaps in the illusion, he'd managed to escape. The next time, the situation would be different. Even if he could find the gaps again, successfully breaking through them was still an issue. Leyland's eyes flashed as he moved a long distance away in an instant. Deduction and advancement, the central region of the icy plains, outside the castle. Dazzling blue pillars emitted bright light, the most radiant of landmarks. Groups of icy race clansmen and even beasts were attracted by the blue rays of light. The appeal was so strong that anyone who barred their paths was considered an enemy to be attacked. Leyland thought the pillars were like terrifying large-scale summoning spell formations. Anyone that possessed a bloodline related to ice and had grown up here could not resist the allure. Currently in front of him was a strange group. Savage icy beasts mingled with snow fairies and other intelligent beings, the only thing they had in common the desire and fervor in their eyes. They crossed land and water, heading in the direction of the palace as if on a pilgrimage. Leyland had seen this many times already. After the illusory fight at the icy castle, the Arctic Queen had not moved to chase him, evidently being limited somehow. Instead, the range of her spell formation extended further, encompassing the entire world of ice. Icy beings flooded into the area day after day, nourishing their queen. Leyland obviously would not just watch on. Looking apathetic, he pressed down with his right arm. Rumble! A gigantic palm print appeared on the surface that was formed of solid ice. The snow fairies, ice leopards, and other creatures all turned to powder. Having taken care of this, Leyland's brows furrowed as he hurried in another direction in which an even larger group had formed. How populous was the world of ice? Even if Leyland did all he could to intercept them, many still managed to break through, turning into powder at the icy castle. Such absolute control. It's a tragedy for the other races. Watching the scene, Leyland sighed a little. It was obvious that the bloodlines of the various races in this world of ice had originated from the Arctic Queen, so when she decided to take them back, they could not resist at all. The same situation would apply with the Snake Dowager. With her might and bloodline control, Leyland would probably be unable to rebel even if he was ordered to die. This was also what Leyland was trying his utmost to avoid. It looks like the Arctic Queen has some sort of restriction on her body, which was why she had to groom Arwen. She also had to groom the many races in this world of ice, and use regular blood sacrifices to obtain strength, life force, and lights flashed in Leyland's eyes. The previous incident obviously enraged her. She actually summoned all the races in this miniature icy world to their sacrificial deaths. Her aura is strengthening every day. At this thought, Leyland produced a few test tubes and flicked them out with his fingers. Streaks of purple splashed on the backs of a few gigantic rank 3 beasts, forming strange runes that sank in. Noticing Leyland wasn't blocking them anymore, they roared as they pressed forward towards the castle of ice. Leyland frowned and arrived at a temporary dwelling. He'd been doing such a thing every day, but could not determine the efficacy of such an act. AI Chip, how's the simulation of the soul defense coming along? Beep. Soul defense spell pattern deduction at 97.6%. The AI chip loyally intoned. It projected a faint phantom of a spell model that was almost complete. Rank 4 spell, Soul Guard. Summing up the bloodline models of the spirit warlocks, the information from the database on the soul has been used to deduce a spell to defend against soul invasions. Referenced material. Way of the Soul, a primer on spell models. There was a detailed introduction under this model, including the referenced materials which made up a long list. Leyland wanted to deal with the Arctic Queen's invasion into his soul. That she could actually break through his point mass to drag his true soul into an illusion had horrified him. The moment a morning star Magus, true soul lost the protection of their point mass, it was extremely fragile. He had been lucky enough to escape the last time, or else with the opponent's ability at connecting her illusions with reality, he would have died in the real world if he died in the illusion. This was why he'd had the AI chip simulate a spell model urgently to protect his soul. With the opponent not able to move freely, Leyland had a good opportunity. However, with the terrifying summoning currently underway and the vast region within which she could absorb life force, Leyland had no choice but to plan his move quickly. He had considered using his Morning Star arcane art to destroy the castle, but he had no idea where the bloodline and remains of the Scorpion Man were. Furthermore, even the giant Chem-In serpent would be restricted by the opponent's main body, and wouldn't be able to destroy the place in a single move. An ancient bloodline creature's usage of soul force could not compare to that of a Morning Star Magus, and they were particularly vulnerable to such attacks. Based on the current progress, it should be completed by tomorrow. Leyland's eyes glowed with intelligence. A normal Morning Star Magus would have to spend decades, even centuries, to deduce a rank 4 spell. This was especially true for one that dealt with the mysteries of the soul, and it would take even more time. With the AI chip, it was merely a matter of how much processing power was allocated to the task. Once the model was done, it could directly be transmitted to Leyland's memory, and even the process of familiarizing himself with it could be done away with, saving him much time. A day later, above the castle of ice, Creatures and other beings with bloodlines related to ice would approach this place with a dazed look in their eyes, turning to powder at the place. The region of the energy absorption had grown several-fold, and even the purple swamp had been weakened. It looks like the Arctic Queen's been working hard. Blue light shone from Leyland's eyes, and an energy beam struck down, opening up a pathway. Through continued observation and calculations, he'd long since learnt the details of this method of absorption. Finding an energy node based on the distribution was a simple task. Rank 4 spell, Soul Guard. A green luster appeared in Leyland's eyes, spreading throughout his body. Fine runic chains formed in his sea of consciousness, yielding an even tighter defensive layer around the point mass. Footsteps sounded in the pathway that had been created by the explosion. What was formerly only a basement currently had a number of roads and spaces below it. The surface was full of solid ice, forming intricate patterns and images on the top. Leyland took in a deep breath and stepped into the basement. Arctic Queen, I'm here. The path was long, and light was sparse, only some feeble jade-green light leaking from the walls on both sides. The terrifying icy radiation even affected space-time here, causing Leyland to feel a sense of disorder. A dense smell of rust spread throughout the channel as a multicolor light spread from the end. It was piercing to the eyes. Do not! Come! Sinner! Deformed sounds were intermittently transmitted to Leyland's ears, the contents only faintly discernible. The soul force of the Arctic Queen spread out, attempting to break through Leyland's point mass and pull his true soul into another illusion. Prepared as he was, the green rays grew brighter on the surface of Leyland's body, creating an illusory layer that began to tremble vigorously. Large amounts of soul force were consumed as Leyland persevered under the Arctic Queen's relentless attack on his soul. Soul invasion detected. Soul Guard has been engaged to resist, beginning automatic adjustment of defensive structure. The AI chip's voice sounded continuously. With its precise calculations, Leyland's soul force consumption was suddenly reduced. The external layer of green light somewhat stabilized. You will regret it. You will regret it. As she noticed that she was unable to break through Leyland's defenses, the Arctic Queen's voice became piercing and seemed to hold within a poisonous curse. It then disappeared. I will only truly feel regret if I don't get what I want, Leyland sneered, eyes full of an intense resolution as he stepped onto the unknown path ahead. Boom! Large amounts of solid ice turned into powder, the jade-green runes breaking apart and then revealing the exit. You even needed Arwen to help you set up the defensive spell pattern. Seems like your body can't move at all. Leyland sighed as he walked out. After leaving the pathway, everything suddenly seemed spacious. Leyland surveyed his surroundings. This seemed to be a natural underground cave. At the top was a tremendous slanting passageway. Deep imprints could be seen in it. At the heart of the cave was a large depression, rays of jade light flickering within like fine threads that formed an enormous network. Terrifying radiations were being emitted from within the depression, so dense they were practically tangible. Leyland advanced grimly, finding a terrifying corpse at the center of the depression. It was emitting morning star-ranked energy undulations. This was the real aura of an ancient bloodline, deep and lofty, bringing with it a sense of history that was filled with grandeur. Arwen seemed like a mere inferior product in comparison to the giant corpse in front of him, full of flaws. We meet again, Scorpion Man. Leyland could not help but recall the ancient memory fragments that he had acquired from the icy jade Scorpion Emperor's bloodline. Those fragmented pieces of information had originated from the morning star creature before him. Leyland glanced at the depression, and then the trail at the top, a scene appearing in his mind. The void had shattered, and Scorpion Man had dropped into the crust of the earth like a meteor, forming a tremendous depression. The radiation from his body had altered the area, forming the world of ice, and the being that succeeded him had built the icy castle above the depression. Scorpion Man and Scorpion Woman, this is the source of everything, Leyland sighed. If not for the Scorpion Man dying here while carrying the bloodline of the female bronze giant, the entire world of ice would not have been formed. Hence, it wasn't too much of a stretch to call him this world's progenitor. Leyland's body floated up to the place and slowly descended, arriving at the floor of the hollowed-out area. After seeing the Scorpion Man in full view, his pupils suddenly narrowed. In front of him was reclined the corpse of an enormous creature, half human, half scorpion. Streaks of icy blue connected to the Scorpion Man through his skin like a spider web, injecting great amounts of life force and icy energy into him. And on the back of the scorpion man, strange green blood wriggled as if it had a life of its own. It even covered the scorpion man's entire back, spreading in all directions. Green veins bulged all over the scorpion man's body, writhing around. They were like lifeless pupils, full of eeriness. The corrosion of the green blood and blood vessels had slightly transformed the scorpion man's appearance. Compared to the body in Leyland's memory, the scorpion man's now seemed thinner. Even its face had become more exquisite, appearing more feminine. Female characteristics were showing on its upper body as well. "Oh, no, this isn't a corpse," Leyland was astonished. Only after drawing close had he realized that the scorpion man had a weak breath, his chest slowly throbbing. However, the small waves of life force seemed incomparably small when paired with the huge body, so small in fact that Leyland had neglected them at the start. "This scorpion man is actually alive." Leyland stumbled a few steps back. At the same time, the scorpion man suddenly opened his eyes. "You're here." A familiar soul force wave began to attack Leyland's defenses. "You're not the scorpion man. You're the Arctic Queen. No, you're the guardian of the icy world, the female bronze giant," Leyland blurted out. Dense black scales covered his entire body, and a few test tubes containing potions exploded out, forming a huge screen of light. His earring was activated, in standby to attack. Even as he was currently, Leyland did not dare to take the risk of facing an ancient creature that comprehended laws. Although he had made a rough guess before, the truth coming out still dazed him slightly. As he saw this scene, all the events flashed across Leyland's mind rapidly, and he managed to establish a picture of what had happened quite quickly. The snake dowager had attacked the icy world, and the female bronze giant had died during the war. A drop of her blood fell on the scorpion man's body as he fell into a spatial crack, accompanying him as he arrived here by chance. The scorpion man had died on the spot, but the green blood on his back had survived. The female bronze giant was a terrifying creature that had crossed rank 7. She could even control certain laws and can reborn from a single drop of blood. Her bloodline inherited a part of her spiritual imprint. On top of that, even if the scorpion man's morning star strength faded, his body retained its vitality. The drop of such an ancient bloodline could obtain a new life here after separating from the main body. Yet, it was incomparably difficult to be reborn from a single drop of blood. Hence, it acted like a virus, seeking life to live off of, attempting to infect another party and transform it as required. And in Twilight Zone, was there any creature more suitable for this than the scorpion man? Without considering other factors, the mere problem of distance was enough to make a decision. Thus, the giant's bloodline began living off the scorpion man's corpse, even transforming it. This led to the emergence of female characteristics in his appearance. Such transformations not only required a large amount of time, but also a terrifying amount of life energy. Hence, the imprint of the giant formed a miniature icy world through icy radiation, even producing life in this world of ice. Soon after, she used a portion of the scorpion man's flesh to create a guardian for herself, Arwen. A guardian at the Morning Star realm was enough to suppress anything else in Twilight Zone. Hence, the giant hid behind the scenes while Arwen took charge of all the matters on the surface, regularly gathering icy creatures as blood sacrifices. This was to strengthen the scorpion man's life energy, so as to nourish the giant's blood. Initially, all of this was close to success. Once the transformation was successful, the giant would be reborn from the scorpion man's body and become a new life. That is, it would have if Leyland hadn't appeared. However, there are no ifs in life. Leyland's appearance, and especially Arwen's death, left the giant with no choice but to come forth personally and hasten the collection of flesh and life energy until this point. The scorpion man stared at Leyland, and a calm soul force was transmitted from his body. "No, I am only a part of the giant. The current me is a combination of a synthesized memory imprint and this scorpion man's body. Thus, I am indeed the Arctic Queen." Upon hearing that, Leyland heaved a deep sigh of relief. Even if the opponent had the blood of a creature that controlled laws, its body was still not done with the transformation. It could not be considered a full resurrection yet, only a bloodline imprint struggling at death's door. Hence, the current scorpion man could not move at all. Even speaking needed to be accomplished through soul force, never mind anything else. If it's like that, I still have a chance. A brilliant glow burst forth from Leyland's eyes. Even if the Scorpion Man was done with its body's transformation, it would only be a peak rank 4 at most, and by relying on the bloodline's strength be comparable to a rank 5 Radiant Moon Magus. However, Leyland had many cards in his hands and could still put up a fight. The opponent's inability to move even gave him an advantage. Scorpion Man, this is the creature's name, Leyland asked. Yes, but I don't like this appearance and need to modify him to draw him closer towards a Scorpion Woman. After all, the Scorpion Woman's illusory ability is well known in the entire icy world. Coincidentally, this innate skill matches with my bloodline as well. It's just that this process and the reincarnation both require a lot of time. The Arctic Queen began answering Leyland like she was obliged to, as if she had suddenly become a different person. No wonder, Leyland nodded, but his pupils reflected a mocking look. With a bang, the ground shook and something that seemed like a blue root emerged. Branches and leaves merged with the blue antennae on the Scorpion Man's body, forming a cage which sealed Leyland in it. Snow-white fog emerged from the Scorpion Man's pores continuously, merging with the blue antennae and even forming a natural frosty rune on the surface. But luckily you're here, with a human morning star's flesh. By using Wur's sacrificial rites to offer your point mass to the Ice Sovereign, I believe I can speed up the transformation process, even take it till completion. The Arctic Queen's voice was cold. Since you've killed Arwen, use your flesh to pay back your debt. A blood-red light blade emerged on Leyland's palms, slashing the cage suddenly and causing a piercing boom. Many snow-white runes flickered, even forming a layer of hard blue ice. It froze the blade on the cage, and many more blue arms stretched towards Leyland. A 700-degree attack is also ineffective. Leyland dodged and retreated, analyzing the runes on the cage. Mere energy loops cannot have such an effect. Could it be these runes? Frost confinement runes from the ancient icy world, with a record of imprisoning even Radiant Moon Magi. If you won't believe that, you can try it for yourself. The Arctic Queen began laughing hysterically. Did you think that I won't have the strength to strike back because I cannot move? I've said this before, you'll definitely regret coming in. Leyland was not bothered by her piercing laughter, instead minding his own business as he came to the edge of the cage. AI chip, conduct a scan. Beep. Ancient frost confinement runes discovered. Effect. Enhances the firmness of the attached item by 5 levels and frost resistance by 7. Provides reflective abilities to ice. Estimated strength, 890/1120. The AI chip quickly responded. I'm afraid with such a level I could only escape from this place by attacking a few times with full strength, using Chemian Serpent Transformation, Leyland sighed. Only is there a need to. He stretched out both his hands, revealing a purple radiance. The moment this purple radiance came into contact with the cage, something bizarre happened. Black spots began spreading across the cage, unstoppable even by the ancient confinement runes. The entire cage was like an old wooden frame. It began to corrode rapidly, and thousands of holes appeared on it. Leyland only exerted a slight force with his hands, and a huge hole opened up in the cage. He then walked out. Impossible. The Arctic Queen's piercing laughter immediately stopped. Nothing's impossible. You analyzed my potion in detail, even removing the poison, but how can a potion I created be so easy to defeat? Leyland laughed as a purple rune on his fingertip flickered irregularly. As if this rune triggered some sort of chain reaction, large amounts of purple dots appeared on the Scorpion Man's body, even sealing off the blood on his back. Through his previous setup at the Castle of Ice and the trick he'd played on the icy creatures, Leyland had turned the tables in an instant, gaining the power to take the initiative. HMPH, mere poison, the Arctic Queen hummed coldly. I know, a bit of poison won't affect an ancient morning star creature, unable to even last a few minutes. However, I only need a few minutes anyway. Leyland averted his gaze from the Scorpion Man, watching the green blood on his back. You still don't know right. I'm actually a warlock, even a bloodline descendant of the snake dowager that caused your death. And for us warlocks, separating blood and purifying genes are the simplest things ever. Successful planning Leyland's voice held no enthusiasm as he mercilessly released thread-like rays of crimson light that pierced into the Scorpion Man's back. The green blood began to squirm as if it had just seen its worst enemy. Unfortunately, it was not just the blood of the female bronze giant that was affected by the poison. Even the voice of the Arctic Queen was turning sluggish. Leyland paid no attention to the fervent pleas and offers of the Arctic Queen, instead focusing on refining the bloodline in his hands. With his manipulations, the green blood from the Scorpion Man's back was slowly extracted, veins showing themselves one after the other. Ah, the Snake Dowager again. The Arctic Queen's voice calmed. Even if I'll die right away and be damned for eternity, I won't let the Snake Dowager prevail. The green blood began to boil and rumble, bursting into verdant flames. The toxins were removed ahead of time. As expected, the vitality of an ancient morning star creature is more powerful than that of one from the present. The potion has been counteracted. Leyland's brows furrowed, but he did not do anything to indicate he would give up. It was way too rare to acquire the chance to refine the bloodline of an ancient creature, especially one that could comprehend laws. Such a thing was almost never seen. Obviously, Leyland didn't want to give up just like this. HSS. A large phantom snake appeared, and space immediately froze. Great power burst forth from Leyland's body, locking onto the Scorpion Man and the blood. Plan B, then. Leyland's voice was cold, his eyes without any emotion. Great amounts of blood-colored threads dug into the Scorpion Man's back, forming forbidden runes after mixing with the poison. It caused the Arctic Queen's movements to grow even more sluggish. Give up. I know everything already, and have come up with a method specifically to deal with you. Leyland's voice held no sympathy. He spoke the truth. After a period of external observation, he'd run over 10,000 simulations with the AI chip, preparing many contingency plans for this trip underground. He'd predicted this situation already and prepared specific countermeasures against it. Leyland had stored tens of spell patterns to seal ancient bloodline in the AI chip's database. The Arctic Queen could not move about freely and had not finished her resurrection. In front of Leyland, who had made meticulous preparations, her various attacks were destroyed in practically a single blow. Her cries had transformed into mournful wails. Even her sorrowful cries grew softer and softer. Her soul was being suppressed and weakened. If your main body was around, you'd definitely be able to crush me like an ant, but it's a pity that you're only a droplet of her blood. You haven't even revived yourself completely. Leyland spoke calmly, eyes flashing with a peculiar light. There was no reply as the soul force from the other side died down, and then began to weaken at a terrifying rate. Large amounts of green blood withdrew and returned to the back of the Scorpion Man, and the green blood vessels rejoined with the blood. Green blood mixed together, decreasing in volume yet becoming brighter and more vibrant. It emitted a dark, bronze light. What's going on? Has she really given up? Suspicion flickered in Leyland's mind. He put his guard up but still retained the same front. With the Arctic Queen's movements, the green blood that had been spread out gathered to form a single droplet of resplendent bronze blood. The original blood of the icy world's guardian. Leyland's eyes grew dazed, his voice full of emotion. This was the blood of an existence that controlled laws, an existence with rank 7 strength at the very least. It even held the imprint of its original owner, able to revive the being from this single drop. The effects of Leyland's purification began to show themselves as the blood condensed on the Scorpion Man's body. Yield! Leyland took out a notebook with a slightly yellow cover. He opened it up to reveal a slight luster from the title page. At the center of the page was a round sealing spell formation. Bloodline sealing tome? No! The Arctic Queen's originally feeble energy undulations suddenly reverberated once more, her voice distorting, becoming androgynous as it turned hoarse. The Snake Dowager and her blood, the icy world shall forever be your enemy. Her voice became masculine, awakening some sort of ancient memories and sending a malicious curse Leyland's way. As the Bronze Empress, the guardian of the icy world, I offer a sacrifice. SKMGKL. Leyland did not recognize who exactly she was making a sacrifice to. You may have had the upper hand today, but you could never have thought of laws. That is a strength that surpasses your understanding. I offer up all the laws I possess. Strength of SKMGKL descend. The dark green flames crackled as their strength grew tenfold, and even the tremendous morning star body of the Scorpion Man was eaten into rapidly. Large amounts of runic chains cracked, and the poison withdrew. Even Leyland's bloodline extraction spell was forcefully interrupted. This is the power of laws, unthinkable. It's only a single drop of blood. Leyland's face grew pale, suffering the backlash from a spell being interrupted. However, he did not have the time to think further. That droplet of blood which contained laws had already been offered. After breaking the seal, it turned into a shooting star as it charged towards Leyland. The energy defenses shattered layer by layer as the blood advanced, unimpeded even by the Chemian scales and the scarlet earring. The blood slammed into Leyland's chest, splattering all across his body. One could hear the hissing as it corroded him away. White fumes shot up as the Chemian scales on Leyland's chest fell apart visibly, piece by piece. A pool of green liquid had latched onto his chest, burning into it. The Chemian scales softened and fell off one after another with no end in sight, revealing charred flesh and bones. Beep. Host's chest has severe burns. Immediate treatment recommended. Beep. Detected corrosion of host by unknown energy. Expulsion procedures recommended. The AI chip reported immediately. I've burned the power of the laws in my body as well as the remains of the Scorpion Man. The result is an explosive force that can kill even radiant moons. Let us be buried together in the ice and snow, you who contain the bloodline of the Snake Dowager. The Arctic Queen's voice grew lower and lower as it eventually disappeared. The terrifying green blood had spread from his torso to his limbs, verdant blood vessels crawling over Leyland's face. It caused him to look sinister and horrifying. Beep. Warning. Warning. Life and soul force of host is being consumed at a heavy rate. Immediate action required. Time until collapse of genes, 34s. The prompt box that the AI chip ejected had a very dense blood-red color in the frame, displaying the danger of the situation. If he was not careful, he could lose his life. It's finally reached this point. Though half of Leyland's body was being corroded by the green blood as he laid on the ground, there was no trace of dismay on his ice-cold face. Instead, it seemed as if a scheme of his had succeeded. 3410 possible scenarios as well as 982 sudden occurrences, the opponent chose the method of mutual destruction. Not like that was a surprise. Even with preparations, the corrosion from the bloodline of a creature that comprehended laws caused Leyland to cough violently, large amounts of fresh blood seeping through his fingers. HSS. Behind him, the tremendous figure of a giant Chemian serpent came into view once more. Now, however, its energy was unstable. Tinted dark green, were burning on the body of the giant serpent. It was not just the figure behind him. Leyland felt even the giant Chemian bloodline in his body being eaten into, expelled, and even destroyed. Bloodline ignition. Blood-red light surged from Leyland's eyes as the purple blood of the Chemian serpent was enriched several-fold, which was now filled with insanity and fury. A large amount of his own blood bubbled up, purple confronting green. Leyland rolled to his side and got up. Though using bloodline ignition to fight was like fixing thirst by drinking poison, he now had control over his own body again, albeit temporarily. The AI chip has already simulated this several times, and the rate of success is as high as at 90%. Leyland clenched his fists tightly. A 90% chance is enough for me to take the risk. A resolute look appeared on Leyland's face. If I can't climb to the top in this lifetime, I would rather die and rot as sludge. Son's child imprint. He abruptly took off the white glove on his right hand, the golden-red bloodline imprint emitting dazzling light. Activating plan thoroughfare. Support and trajectory activated. The AI chip intoned. An enormous blazing light spread in this underground world, as if a sun had risen within. Everywhere the flaming light, be it soil, rocks, or spells of ice, everything was vaporized immediately, causing the underground cave to expand rapidly. The beings still in the world of ice could see a tremendous sun rising from the castle, imparting heat and light to this underground world. The ever-unchanging ice began to melt, mountains collapsing as doomsday seemed to have arrived. Ice melted into flowing water, which quickly evaporated itself. The white vapor spread everywhere, turning into a layer of fog in the surroundings. Quickly, the original dark brown soil was revealed once more. The range of this heat continued to expand, as if ready to transform the entire world of ice. Rank 5, and the Snake Dowager, gigantic and graceful, the phantom of a Chemian serpent emperor that held an elegance befitting a ruler, appeared behind Leyland's back. Large amounts of blood-colored energy shrouded him. The serpent emperor snarled as a black hole appeared in front of it, sucking in the surrounding ice, earth, rocks, the remains, and even the air. Once large amounts of materials disappeared into its mouth, Leyland felt a powerful life force begin to circulate within his body. His body buzzed as first the skeleton, then his internal organs, blood, flesh, and finally the skin was regenerated. With the help of a powerful life force, the injuries on his body recovered at a frightening rate. Could this be the rumored devouring ability of the Chemian Serpent Emperor? Leyland had a thought. Immediately after, he felt his arm go numb, and the limb that had been broken off began to regenerate. In just 10 or so seconds, the grave injury was completely recovered. This speed left even Leyland in shock. With this rate of recovery, I can recover quickly even in a battle against a radiant moon. I could even endure a morning star arcane art with just my body, immediately restoring myself afterwards. If the devouring ability is already so terrifying, what about that of control? He wondered. The information about the Chemian Serpent Emperor had been lost in ancient times, and a large portion of the information that was gathered had been derived by the AI chip from his bloodline memories. It was rather small, but just looking at the description he could tell that his control over Chemian warlocks was great. Great enough, in fact, that if he commanded a Morningstar Chemian warlock to die, the other party would not be able to resist at all. HSS, though he had completely recovered, the giant Chemian serpent figure at Leyland's back was still unsatisfied. It abruptly broke through the layer of soil and soared into the air. A terrifying suction force appeared, and everything, be it living or otherwise, was dragged towards the black hole that had appeared in the serpent's mouth. The force spread out farther than even the bounds of the castle, radiating into the surroundings. Leyland could see several powerful creatures, many at the crystal phase, dragged from the sky by force as they disappeared into the black hole. Practically every being in this world of ice automatically bowed their heads in respect and fear, trembling bodies paralyzed under the suppression of the Chemian Serpent Emperor. The accumulated life force was enormous, eventually forming a cocoon that covered Leyland. The Chemian Serpent Emperor at Leyland's back continued to snarl unceasingly, and only after almost devouring the entirety of the central icy plains did it pull back into the cocoon of light, satisfied. Leyland was undergoing a wondrous transformation within. Powerful bloodline energy fused with boundless life force, aiding Leyland in his bid to charge into rank 5. He was becoming a rank 5 warlock, a radiant moon. There were likely no more than 20 radiant moons in the entire central continent, second only to the Breaking Dawn monarchs. It was also precisely due to the radiant moons in the Union that bloodline warlocks still survived to this day. On top of that, this event was even more significant for Leyland. He had finally moved past the bloodline shackles of the giant Chemian serpent and now had the wherewithal to try to become a rank 5. I already reached the peak of Morning Star after fusing Fireplume into my point mass, so I already meet the requirements for the advancement. And now that the bloodline and technique that were holding me back are solved, Leyland chuckled lightly. With the cooperation of the bloodline of the rank 5 Chemian Serpent Emperor, his advancement was smooth. The 5th level of Chemian's pupil that the AI chip had just deduced began to operate slowly. The point mass in his sea of consciousness buzzed as it revolved quickly, growing in density as the nebula surrounding it began another round of frantic expansion. Another layer of fine black runes emerged on top of it. With the probing of the soul through the AI chip, Leyland could see the trussel located at the heart of the point mass beginning to evolve. Probing through his AI chip, Leyland saw his trussel at the heart of his point mass breaking through its limits at the peak of Morning Star, expanding to form the shape of a moon. It was glittering with a fine radiance that filled it with a sense of perfection. Soul force was constantly poured in, causing the round moon to emanate a cool luster. Once that was completed, his soul that was a size larger than that of normal radiant moon, Magi, had on it a layer of soul force that looked like a crescent moon that emitted an intense radiance. I don't have enough soul force to fill my trussel. In fact, I don't even have enough to fill half the volume. It seems like I'm a new moon. Leyland suddenly came to an understanding of how radiant moons trained. Ranks 4 to 6 involved the training of soul force. Morning stars were still fumbling around without direction. It was when one advanced to radiant moon that they began true training. The soul, which was in the shape of a moon, showed how much soul force one had with its radiance. Rank 5 Magi had to train and fill it up. The different amounts of fullness represented the different stages of new moon, half moon, and full moon Magi. Beep. Host's soul force has been strengthened. Chip upgrade commencing. Time to completion, 4M24s. With the advancement of his soul, the AI chip was undergoing its upgrade immediately as well, having been fused into it. Perhaps it was because it had already gained quite a bit from Sky City. The advancement this time was quite rapid. In less than 5 minutes, it had completed its upgrade and rebooted. The sounds of the AI chip rang once more. Beep. Host's Chem-In's pupil meditation technique has reached the 5th level, advancing to rank 5 Warlock. Beep. Host has advanced to become a Radiant Moon Warlock. All statistics have been significantly strengthened, recalculating. The familiar robotic voice seemed to be accompanied with a changed interface, the screen projected in Leyland's mind even more solid than before. Looks like the AI chip has undergone a huge transformation. Leyland touched his chin. Data collection complete. Display. The AI chip launched another prompt. Leyland nodded as he voiced his approval. The AI chip immediately projected the refreshed numbers before Leyland's eyes. Leyland Farlier, rank 5 Warlock. Bloodline, Chem-In Serpent Emperor. Strength, 75 Agility, 61 Vitality, 137.5 Spiritual Force, 1,326.7 Magic Power, 1,326 Magic Power is in synchronization with Spiritual Force. Soul Force, 133 New Moon. It really deserves to be called the bloodline of the Chem-In Emperor. The numbers were raised to such a huge extent. Leyland's expression was filled with glee. Not only had his spiritual force broken through 1,000, his strength and agility, which had not improved in a very long while, had increased as well. His vitality had been raised by over 30 points, which was just terrifying. I never expected that the growth of Chem-In warlocks would only become more frightful with time. Leyland read through his stats and could not help but sigh. He felt the soul energy in his body that was as cool as water. It was soul force that had reached rank 5 and was of a higher quality than that at Morning Star, therefore having better effects. However, there was no elation in Leyland's expression. The issue of the bloodline shackles still has not been dealt with. I've only pushed it back by a rank, and this time there's no such thing as raising the rank of my bloodline anymore. Leyland gazed at the prompt at the bottom of the stats frame and turned grim. Host's Chem-In bloodline has reached limits of genes, unable to advance further. The AI chip was plainly telling Leyland that after reaching the Chem-In Serpent Emperor, he had reached the limits of his bloodline. At least Chem-In serpents had no way to advance to a higher realm. An ominous feeling, like his future path had been cut off, emerged in Leyland's mind. Boom. The cocoon of light in the world of ice burst apart, revealing Leyland within. Whatever it is, I've finally attained my goal in coming to the subterranean world this time. I just didn't expect the remains of the Scorpion Man to be burnt up along with my opponent. It's slightly regretful that I didn't manage to obtain the coordinates to the icy world. Leyland sighed ruefully, turning into a black figure that disappeared into the void. The long, majestic river that was the astral plane flowed on, many foreign worlds like the stars in the galaxy. They were a brightly colored array, twinkling with varying lusters. In one such world, full of flames and shadows, a boundless darkness formed a dense fog that completely covered the continent. Numerous ancient, terrifying serpents grew and multiplied in this place, terrifying auras at Morning Star advancements appearing everywhere. At the heart of the continent, the holy land of all snakes, Morning Star serpents could be seen everywhere. The closer one got to the center, the more horrifying they became, as rank 5 and even ran 6 snakes flashed by on occasion. In a gigantic spatial crack, a coiled ball of snake the size of a star revealed the alluring figure of the snake dowager. The moment Leyland reached rank 5, she opened a pair of misty eyes that seemed like water. I'd never thought that today, after the end of the ancient era, an emperor would awaken among the Chemian race. The eyes of the snake dowager seemed to penetrate across multiple worlds and the astral plane, locking onto the Magus world and a young warlock. To her, a Morning Star was just a basic soldier. Rank 5s and 6s were worthy of attention, and such a thing as the Chem-In Serpent Emperor that could control the giant Chem-In serpents was even more worthy of interest. The power of destiny is guiding you here. The life and death of multiple worlds flashed across her beautiful eyes. 2 Mandara flowers, one bright and one dark, bloomed in them before dissipating. Destiny, seen through the eyes of the snake dowager. Tracking and the statue, the beautiful eyes of the snake dowager seemed to see into fragments of the future, penetrating the long river of destiny. After her prophecy, the snake dowager coiled back into the ball, seeming to sink back into a deep slumber. What's going on? I feel like somebody's watching me and I have an ominous feeling. The very instant the snake dowager's sight set into the Magus world, Leyland, who was in the midst of flying, felt his hair stand on end. An odd mixture of terror and reverence appeared in his mind. The snake dowager! Leyland felt a bitterness in his mouth. Never had he expected that once he had advanced into a rank 5 warlock, he would arouse her interest. But this is the Magus world. It isn't that easy for her to come over. Whether this sort of attention was good or bad, Leyland had no wish to form any sort of relationship with an existence at such a level. He'd always liked to operate after careful planning, and even if it was the snake dowager, he hoped to seek her out only after making his own preparations. That was better than being passive and letting her find him. A radiant moon strength shouldn't be enough to arouse the interest of the snake dowager, unless... Leyland touched his chin, light flickering in his eyes. Could it be that my Chemian Serpent Emperor bloodline is making her feel threatened? Leyland couldn't help but turn his attention back to the summary the AI chip had given him about his bloodline, specifically the row that detailed his control ability. Chemian Serpent Emperors have a total dominance over giant Chemian serpents and all their descendants. Could this result in some overlap and conflict with the snake dowager's own rule? Leyland suddenly had the urge to try it out. If he and the snake dowager were to give a Chemian warlock an order at the same time, what would they do? However, such an insane idea was quickly suppressed. With his current strength, challenging the snake dowager's authority is equivalent to death. The ability of the Chemian Serpent Emperor to rule over others was, in fact, a breakthrough for him to resist the snake dowager's control over himself. It was like a seedling that needed to be watered regularly until it bloomed and bore fruit. Before all this, he needed to keep a low profile, silently amassing strength and prepare to soar, waiting till he completely broke through the bloodline shackles and also broke free from the control of the snake dowager. I've found it! This is it, Mount Usura. A few figures robed in black appeared over a volcano. Large amounts of lava spurted into the sky, but it bypassed their bodies without even so much as a ripple. Time recall. One of the black-robed figures looked solemn as he used a spell, dazzling light being generated at his fingertips. The translucent face of a mirror suddenly appeared before him, revealing a blurred scenery. After summoning this mirror, the black-robed figure seemed fatigued as he spoke to another Magus behind him. Carol, it's up to you now. You're the most adept in this aspect. All right. While the Magus behind him was wearing a black robe, her physique was evidently smaller than the others, and her voice was gentle and agreeable. Aura extraction. She stood before the screen, right arm as smooth and bright as jade as it went through the surface, grabbing hold of a black gas. Woo-woo. After this stream of gas appeared, the magic equipment on the bodies of these people displayed a dazzling luster and made noises. The nose of the hound has reacted. Looks like he was here before, and not too long ago either. The leading Magus spoke with conviction. A Magus began to gnash his teeth. And here we were thinking he'd return to the south coast. Who'd have thought he'd escape into the underground like a mouse? Leyland's concealing techniques were far too complicated, and even magi who excelled in prophecies could do nothing against him. Things were even more complicated for these magi. However, the powerful organization backing them had gathered a lot of information, and through the method of elimination, they'd found a trace of Leyland's whereabouts. The Magus who had spoken before evidently was very hostile towards Leyland, emanating a dangerous air. Warlocks have enhanced bodies, and their skin is the best raw material for art pieces. This Leyland's skin will be a perfect addition to my study room. The female Magus from before shrieked, Eugene, if you don't change that disgusting hobby, I'll break off all relations with you. Enough! Though the target is merely a morning star, it's publicly acknowledged that he possesses battle strength at the radiant moon realm. Don't underestimate him, the leader said, putting a stop to their conversation. Be more careful. He's taken a radiant moon down before. If you don't want your Trussel to be thrown back into the astral plane, buck up and don't look down on your opponent. HMPH, I alone can take care of 2 radiant moons like Stuart. Eugene huffed disdainfully, but did not continue speaking after that. After all, he believed that he could defeat Stuart, but he had no methods that could cause the other party's death. Not even a peak radiant moon or breaking dawn monarch dared guarantee that they could eliminate a radiant moon Magus without letting their opponent escape. Leyland, who possessed the power to kill a radiant moon Magus, was very outstanding. Though he made use of a bloodline imprint to kill Stuart, even I have to admit that he's a genius to be able to push the giant Chemian bloodline to the peak of Morning Star until it is comparable to radiant moons. He's a real genius. Even in ancient times, he would be one of the most dazzling stars. Carol's voice held a sigh within. A genius amongst warlocks. The leader spoke coldly, causing Carol to fall silent. The more geniuses the enemy has, the weaker we are. Leyland must be erased. His voice was icy cold, and Eugene and Carol nodded solemnly. Boss, I just don't understand. Even if Leyland's amazing now, he has the giant Chemian serpent bloodline. Chemian's pupil only has up to 4 levels, and the Morning Star realm is his limit. Why are we hunting him down so fervently? Even while we were chasing Golden Lion Wade when he was a Morning Star, we didn't operate on such a large scale. Carol's face was full of doubt, and Eugene's ears perked up. That's because you don't understand the terror that is the giant Chemian serpent. The leading Magus answered coldly, but did not continue, leaving Carol and Eugene bewildered. I don't care what you think, but whatever it is, killing Leyland Farlier is the most important task sent down by our organization. It must be completed, even at the cost of our lives. The leader's expression was solemn. Carol and Eugene nodded coldly. Amongst Magi, this was truly a rare sight. To be able to bind the ever-rational Magi to this extent meant the organization backing them was exceptionally powerful. In addition, Leyland, as he is right now, is very difficult to deal with, especially with people from the Warlock Union meddling. They're rather protective of this younger generation. In spite of the warning, Eugene was full of confidence. Don't worry, boss. If the real bodies of those warlocks dare emerge from the Morning Star area, our monarch wouldn't let them off so easily. Based on the intel, the target had been a ruler of Twilight Zone for a period of time and must be extremely familiar with the situation there. We need to act very cautiously when we go down there. The leading Magus continued to express his caution before 3 flickering rays of light pierced into the lava like sharp blades, following the lava pathway and sinking downwards. If even Morning Star Magi could pass through the barrier, there was no issue at all for radiant moons. In Twilight Zone, the headquarters of Nature's Alliance Academy, the academy had now regained its previous vibrance. Ever since Leyland's return, the humans of Twilight Zone broke away from the darkness of war and even gained a glorious victory. All this would have been unimaginable in the past, but had been easily attained with Leyland's arrival. Leyland's gigantic black stone statue was still at the center of the bustling square in all its glory, but now there was another in the corner. This statue had a distorted human face, nose and eyes squeezed together due to extreme shock and terror. It seemed rather comical. Coupled with the assumed motion of the body, it looked like a clown, creating a stark contrast with Leyland's statue in the middle. Whenever a few of the official Magi in the academy passed by the statue, their eyes filled with a trace of panic that did not dissipate for a long while. This clownish stone statue was naturally that banker from before. Though he was a rank 3 Magus who was once regarded as the strongest human, he'd been killed by Leyland without any chance to retaliate. Even his body had become a stone figure, exhibited here for eternity to be sneered at by later generations. This method immediately resulted in incessant terror in the Magi's hearts. There were also some who were filled with reverence towards Leyland. What is it? Is there anything else? In the luxurious villa, Leyland reclined on the sofa, watching the Magus that seemed to be short of time. It was obvious that this young man was extremely nervous. His eyes showed his admiration and apprehension at meeting his idol face to face. Lord Protector. Will's face was filled with emotion and uneasiness. If you knew my mother, would you know about my father? Jenny never told you. Leyland watched Will with interest. It had to be said that he was still somewhat similar to his father. No. Every time she talked about it, she got so sorrowful. Will hanged his head low. There are some things we don't know, and things we can't tell you even if we knew. Leyland laughed as he stroked Will's head. The only thing I can tell you is that I'd chosen to bring you into Nature's Alliance Academy. Of curses and dreams, Will walked out dejectedly. He had gained no further insight than Leyland's encouragement. Other than that, he felt that this father whom he had never seen before was shrouded in a layer of dense fog. What's wrong with Will? Celine had instantly noticed this anomaly as she walked into Leyland's villa carrying a silver plate. Freshly grounded coffee, personally made by me. On the silver plate, white mist floated above the beige can and mug. Nothing much, just a youth's confusion. Leyland smiled, held up a cup of coffee, and said, "The taste is still as good as before. How long are you going to be staying this time?" Celine bit her lips, watching Leyland with an evasive gaze. Compared to the previous time they met, Leyland now seemed like an ordinary man. There were no powerful energy waves being transmitted from his body anymore. And yet, she knew that this was only a sign of Leyland becoming more powerful. It seemed like he had gained many things during his journey to the icy cave. However, even if she'd known beforehand, Celine could only smile bitterly. One could only gain as much as their strength allowed them. Even if she knew about the existence of the world of ice before Leyland, any one of the giant icy creatures in there could kill her without even leaving her corpse behind. And now, Celine keenly sensed that Leyland had already gained what he wanted, which was why Twilight Zone no longer attracted him. This discovery immediately made her uneasy. "It may be quite some time, but it won't be longer than a year." Leyland took a sip of the rich and mellow coffee. However, the words he said caused Celine's face to turn pale. For a Magus, a year's time was too short. Regardless of what was being done, it was not nearly enough. Even an experiment required a lot more time than this. Seeing Celine's unwilling expression, Leyland secretly sighed, but he did not say anything else. The entire Twilight Zone was just too barren. This place where even a rank 3 Magus could act like a tyrant and become a ruler was honestly too small. Only the larger central continent and the astral plane, where there were endless profound mysteries, were worthy of Leyland's residence, allowing him to travel as much as he wanted in the future. "In that case, can you let me follow you to the central continent?" Celine clenched her teeth. "Of course you can, but I have to tell you a few things first." Leyland looked at Celine with a profound expression in his pupils. In the central continent, rank 2 magi are merely like ants, their sheer number inconceivable. With your current strength, you will only be in the lowest rung of society there. Also, I already have a wife. Are you going to be willing to give up everything in Twilight Zone and leave with me? After hearing Leyland speak honestly about him already having a wife, Celine stumbled a few steps back, obviously not expecting it. And upon hearing that she had to give up the entirety of Twilight Zone, her expression darkened even further. After a long silence, she finally made a decision. Smiling bitterly, she said, "All right, I cannot give up on Mentor's wish nor on Twilight Zone. This is my home." Leyland smiled. "Perhaps I can make it up to you in other aspects. For example, didn't you want my bloodline very badly before?" This was a decision Leyland had made after long and careful deliberation. His current Chem-In's bloodline had already evolved to an extreme point, even reaching its genetic limits. There was no more room for improvement. Hence, the time was finally right to grow his family. A rank 5 Warlock's bloodline would be sufficient to form a terrifying power in a short period of time. With the restriction of the bloodline and his own ability as emperor to control all giant Chem-In serpents, these bloodline descendants would become his most capable assistants in the future. Since he was prepared to grow the Farlier family after his return, there was no harm in leaving another child behind in Twilight Zone. "Really?" Celine's eyes sparkled, and her face even flushed red with excitement. The terrifying innate abilities Leyland had displayed was proof enough that his descendants definitely wouldn't turn out too bad. They might even inherit some powerful abilities from him. Such a bloodline was one that many female magi sought, but few could obtain. One Morning Star's family always had a great chance of producing another among their ranks, much greater than that of other Magus clans. Perhaps one of her own descendants would be a strong Morning Star as well. As she thought along this line, Celine's breathing could not help but gradually get heavier. Seeing Celine in such a state, Leyland could not help but burst out laughing. Although this woman had changed slightly, she was still that same old Celine in essence. However, he did not hold much hope for her at all. Even if she was willing to give up everything in Twilight Zone and return to the central continent with him, she would at most be another good friend for Freya. Furthermore, letting his bloodline grow in multiple places was also safer overall. Leyland stroked his chin. His decision to grow his bloodline in many different places was certainly not about something as simple as expanding his influence. Through his endless study on bloodline mutations and gene changing, he'd come to know that, with enough descendants, there was a chance that a genetic mutation would occur, allowing the individual's strength to rise further than normal. Although such odds were small enough to be disregarded, there was always hope. In fact, many Chemian warlocks and other bloodline warlocks practiced this method. Whenever descendants of exceptionally rich bloodlines appeared, they would perceive it as fate's blessing. I have to go back once my Chemian Serpent Emperor bloodline has fully matured, and I develop my radiant moon strength. Leyland's pupils dimmed. The boiling lava boomed endlessly. Many fiery dragons splashed about, and rocks shattered to expose a passageway that led upwards. A few black figures rushed out of the place directly. Damned Leyland and damned Twilight Zone. Chief, don't you know that concentrated fire elemental particles are a great enemy for a female Magus skin? My maintenance charges for this mission are going to increase, Carol pouted coquettishly, taking out a mirror and looking her skin over carefully. However, the leader and the Magus called Eugene evidently did not care much. As long as this mission can be completed, no one would care even if you rested for 100 years. The leader snorted coldly. He ignored his subordinates' complaints, much more interested in this territory. Tusk, this underground. The elemental particles are already so barren. It's simply a desert for magi. On the other hand, Eugene also sighed while clicking his tongue, showing his disdain towards the barrenness of the Twilight Zone. Compared to the central continent, this place is indeed a desert. However, the darkness and earth elemental particle concentration is still passable, even if barely. Use spells of these two elements as much as possible to conserve your soul force. The chief's head tilted to one side, looking at Carol. Carol, found the opponent yet? Let me see. Carol took out a transparent crystal ball. In the core of this ball was a black wisp of air that swayed back and forth. This was Leyland's aura, collected from Mount Usura. Although Leyland had covered his traces very carefully, as long as such magi had the correct location and suitable spells, finding his tracks was only a matter of time. A black stream of air emerged on Carol's face. After pondering for a moment with her eyes closed, she pointed towards the north and spoke confidently. He's in that direction, I'm sure of it. Good. Now that we've discovered the opponent's position, won't 3 radiant moons like us be able to deal with a simple morning star? Eugene licked his lips. That rascal made me run about outside for such a long time. I want him. This leader nodded. We can. But the target is still as strong as a radiant moon himself. Do not underestimate him. However, I have information that the target still has a weakness. Even if he has fighting strength at the radiant moon realm and powerful bloodline imprints, he is still a morning star at his core. The strength of his true soul is limited to the peak of morning star, if we cast curses or attack the soul. It'll be very safe, Carol nodded. Just nice. There's been some progress in my research on soul curses recently. Just leave it to me. The two of us will assist. The leader looked at Eugene, and the latter agreed with a little reluctance. All right, you're the leader. Whatever you say goes. Evidently, he was a little depressed because he was unable to draw blood directly. Leyland, hurry to school, you're going to be late. A foreign yet familiar voice echoed in his ears, making Leyland a little confused. Where is this AI chip? Around him was a road, cherry blossom trees in full bloom on both sides. Blossoms drifted down to the street one after the other. The ground was very clean, without any sorts of paper scraps. Leyland looked at his own hands. His skin that was milky white without much musculature was full of youth. There was no response from the AI chip, causing Leyland to fall into a deep silence. At this moment, a large chunk of memory entered his brain. I'm Leyland, Innocent Saints High School, Year 3 student. I also have an elder sister and a younger sister in my family. I'm supposed to go to the campus festival. Why? Why do I feel like I've forgotten something important, and what is an AI chip? Why did I remember it subconsciously? Looking at the checkered shirt on his body and the student name tag on his chest, Leyland became quiet in an instant. Hey Leyland, what's wrong with you? A blonde-haired student walked over, pulling Leyland's arm along with him. Surway. Leyland called out the students once he opened his mouth, which made him fall into greater confusion. I need to calm down. Why do I know his name? Where exactly is this? What are you waiting for? We won't make it in time. Surway stopped a taxi, shoving Leyland into it before following closely behind. Driver, Innocent Saints High School. Have you lost your mind? The famous singer Carol has a concert at the campus festival today.